Good evening, everyone. Thank you for braving the weather tonight. I know there's a little bit of nervousness around the rain and everything going on in the world with weather, so thank you all for being here. So I want to say good evening and thank you all for taking the time to be with us tonight. My name is Abby Yeoman. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Kansas City Public Library, so thank you for being here with us. Whether you're joining us in person, you braved the weather, thank you, you brave souls, or if you're joining us online, we're really grateful that you tuned into our library YouTube channel. Welcome, we're so glad to have you with us. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. If you parked across the street in the community bookshelf parking garage, I call it, please don't forget to validate your ticket. I think it's right there on that table as you came in, so we can validate your ticket for you. And if you have any issues with it, just let us know and we can help you with that. And then after tonight's conversation, we will be opening things up to the audience for Q&A. There will be microphones. You can just step up to those microphones and ask the question. And somebody joked on Tuesday night, just make sure it's a question. Good tip. So we will make sure that we get to as many questions as we can. There's also, if you're watching online, you can also drop your questions in the chat, and then we'll make sure that we get to as many of those as we can. So Jennifer Brown, who I just had the pleasure to meet, her book, How to Be an Inclusive Leader, is available for purchase this evening, and I want to thank our wonderful friends and partners at Bliss Books and Wine. And Jennifer will be signing books right after the program, which you all know, it's a great opportunity to have a little bit of one-on-one interaction with the author, so we're grateful to Jennifer for doing that. And then lastly, I'm going to do a little plug here, so thank you for the grace. The library has officially launched our strategic plan process. So we're thinking boldly about what comes next in the future of the library. And as we plan for that, one thing is clear, we can't do that without the community. We need to do it with our community. So your voice will guide through the evolution of the library. We've been in the Kansas City for 151 years this year. Woohoo! Thank you, we're proud of that. So what does the next iteration of Kansas City Public Library look like? And we really feel like the community voice is what needs to guide that. So we ask you all, if you're not one of the 2,026 survey responses we had as of today, we're really proud of that number, we invite you to take a few minutes to share your thoughts in our short survey. So there's a QR code at the front somewhere up here, or, oh, thank you for pointing that out. Or you can go online to kclibrary.org, and the survey is right there on the front homepage. It's really short, it won't take long, but your voice is really important. So if you can do that for us and share it with your neighbors, we would love that. And then let's imagine and create and build. What's next? The next chapter of the library. I had to do a little funny pun because, So now it's my pleasure, so I'm going to actually introduce someone who's going to introduce our author. So it's my pleasure to introduce someone who brings heart, insight, and a true sense of purpose to her work every day. I actually get to work alongside her literally right outside the door. Our library's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Trina Duncan.
Thank you so much, Abby, and thank all of you for spending part of your evening with us today. It means so much to us to see so many great faces, beautiful faces, and to feel that energy of the community that truly cares about what? Belonging. I'd like to give a heartfelt thank you to the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce for their generous partnership on this event, and to Greg Valdivino, Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, for his continued support in helping bring important conversations like this to our city. Tonight's conversation was inspired by the Chamber's Power of Diversity Luncheon, where Jennifer Brown will also be speaking. The annual event honors individuals, nonprofits, and businesses that are moving the needle on diversity efforts in the Kansas City region. Now, why are we here? Next year, Kansas City will welcome hundreds of thousands of people from across the globe as a part of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, in an exciting time and a rare chance to show the world who we are, not just through what we build or host, but through how we treat one another. Belonging isn't just a buzzword. It's something we can crave, right? It's something we can choose to foster every day. questions for you. How do we help our visitors feel welcome? How do we create a city where everyone, including our neighbors, coworkers, and families, feel like they truly belong? Tonight, we're lucky to explore these questions with two remarkable women. Jennifer Brown is one of the leading voices in inclusive leadership. As founder of Jennifer Brown Consulting, she spent nearly 2 decades helping companies and communities build spaces where people can truly show up and thrive. She's also the best-selling author of How to Be an Inclusive Leader, a guide full of wisdom, heart, and practical tools. Joining her is Mará Rose Williams, award-winning journalist and editor at the Kansas City Star. Mará has been a trusted and powerful storyteller in our city, using her voice to help shape a more just, thoughtful, and connected Kansas City. Together, they'll dive into the evolving conversation around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you didn't know what that meant, what belonging really means, and how we, as individuals and as a community, can help create a Kansas City where everyone feels seen, valued, and included. Please join me in a warm welcome for Mará Rose Williams and Jennifer Brown.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Thanks, Jennifer, for being here.
Thank you.
I want to just say this before I say anything else. This is supposed to be kind of an interview, but I want you to think of it more like Jennifer and I are up here having a conversation about this deeply important issue, and we invited all of you to listen in, okay? Because that's what it likely will be. I met Jennifer earlier today, and I will tell you that she walked through the room and brought light with her. And I told her so immediately, and I received that, and we had a wonderful chat earlier today. So that makes this conversation even more exciting and fun. I'm sure it will be fun.
Yes.
There's a couple of things. I put about made a whole list of questions, Jennifer.
Okay.
And I want to just get right in because we don't have a lot of time, and this is a deep topic. We could talk all night about that, and I'm sure you guys don't want to be here all night, but we could. So I'm going to just jump right in, if that's okay.
Yes.
So my first question, before we get into the issue of DEI, belonging and inclusivity, I want to ask you, what inspired you to dedicate your life's work to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Was there a specific moment or experience that made you realize this, and it truly is your calling?
Well, I came out in my 20s, and I had the good fortune of meeting in my early 30s, and this was back in the aughts, I'd say. The people who were beginning the conversation about LGBTQ+, which by the way was GLBT, if we were lucky back then. There was no Q, there was no plus. It was GL, not LG. That I witnessed that change, right? But those were the early days, and such heady days. They were so fun. And it was so full of possibility, probably because I was very young too, and I was excited about everything, ahead. But I was there, luckily enough, because of my volunteerism, to have friends who were starting up the LGBTQ+ initiatives at their large corporations, employers. So they were bringing awareness and educating about customers, a growing customer base that institutions cared about. They were raising awareness about the talent pool and what we wanted and needed and deserved. We were talking about domestic partner benefits back then. This tells you how long ago it was. And I was there as this budding consultant. I had just gotten a master's in organizational change and leadership. So that's the study of institutions, how they change, why, what's the role of the leader in it. And so I think the marriage of this, the potential of this moment. I saw that this was a systems change that I could be a part of. I could bring some of my newly minted consultant skills to it to help structure it and to spread the word and teach about it. And it was a personal thing for me because I hadn't been out. I was an opera singer previous to that. So I was out, but not on stage and not in the world that would cast me, because I was worried that that would limit me. And I ended up leaving opera because I injured my voice, actually. So it's also interesting to notice that the universe said, not there. That is not where you're supposed to be using your voice. Over here is where we need you. Over here is where you can give voice to what hasn't been voiced. But I was that closeted person, both professionally as a singer and then as I kind of tried to make my way in the business world. And not just being LGBT, but being female in a male-dominated world. I mean, we talked a lot about the intersections and all the identities we carry that lead us to feel afraid of disclosing and also prevent us from bringing our full, most brilliant selves. So it was really, really wonderful times where it all lined up and I said, I can be helpful, I can be of service here. This might be something I would be really proud of, this work. And it felt that we were riding this wave and a movement of awareness that was really intoxicating. And we made a lot of progress.
Did you know at that time that it was in your heart and soul? Because when we talked earlier, we got into, like, this is something deep for you. Did you know then, or did you learn that as you did the work, as you began to do the work?
It's I came out and almost woke up to the fact that now I'm in this community of really brave souls. I had grown up incredibly privileged, and looking this way, this is my natural gender presentation. My pronouns are she, her, but this is kind of how I'm comfortable. So I can pass through the world without really disclosing who I am. But the deep mission and the struggle of that community, somehow I thought, this is so much bigger than who I love and the freedom to do that. It's a movement and it's a community that is full of unbelievably courageous, authentic people who are fighting to better the world. And I have ever since then felt so honored to be a part of that legacy, both the people that came before me and then trying to contribute my piece and then leave it better than I found it, because I deeply do not want us to be afraid. I want us to feel safe in our homes, in our communities, in our families, in our workplaces. I didn't, and I sort of signed up for that mission.
So you've been doing this a long time. It's not like 2020 happened.
No.
And you got into this. You've been doing this for years, and having done this for years, you can probably answer this question better than anybody I know. So would you please, for me and for our audience, share how you define this buzzword? It's not a word, it's a phrase. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do you define it differently from what many people think? I mean, what is it? It's more than just DEI. We throw it around all the time. It just rolls off of our tongue. And I don't know that we actually think about what each of those words really mean, because I believe, and I know you do too, that if we really thought about what each word meant, we couldn't possibly be opposed to it.
You think?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's like love and fairness. Let's ban that. No. So can you define it for us?
Yeah.
What does it mean for you?
Well, it's a field, number one. It's a field I've been in. So I think of it as I'm a practitioner in that field. And it's full of consultants and teachers and educators and advocates and activists. But literally, so diversity is the who, It is the mix. It's the ingredients. It's way bigger than race and gender, which is how it originally started years ago.
Yes.
And now I include neurodiversity. I include veterans in it. I include caregivers. I include those who have mental health challenges. I include those of different body sizes and shapes. I include grief and loss and the way that we cope with that. I basically, these days I define it as traditionally stigmatized identities that we are aware carry some kind of risk for us to either disclose or to even dare we celebrate it, right? So I define it, it's not just underrepresented, but it is what's missing in the mix, diversity, to make sure you have the full complement of human diversity. It would be almost endless. And that's why it's such an interesting
Kind
field.
of like, if I could just, it's us.
Yeah, that's it. Simple.
It's us.
Simple and massive. And also
massive, yeah.
invisible dimensions too. So what I find myself doing these days is raising awareness of invisible dimensions, because I think race and gender, we measured that in the workplace, right? And what gets measured gets done, as we always say. But there's so much, like for me to not disclose or not disclose sexual orientation, or for someone to not disclose their true pronouns, or for someone to pass as white when they are not technically, or change the name that they're called, or not talk about having been a veteran and served because of all the stigma that accompanies it. A hidden disability, for example, dyslexia, stuttering. I mean, it's this beautiful thing to keep just allowing it to get bigger and bigger, and eventually it includes all of us, like you said. And yet we're in this place politically where it's viewed as not including some people.
Right.
And it's so strange to me. I think we've got to kind of change the way we describe it and make more efforts to make sure everybody understands there is some way that you understand exclusion. There is some way you have experienced it. And it's not the pain Olympics, as my friend says. I love that. Because we can get into this oppression Olympics. Well, your oppression is harder than mine, is harder than theirs. But I really believe, I think at the end of the day, we've all experienced that. And I take that job really seriously every time I'm on stage, to reach every person that I can in an audience and say, I want you to know you're included in this too. And you have had feelings. Even, I would say, straight, heterosexual white men, there is all kinds of research on what they cover, what they downplay in the workplace, even in leadership. Whether that's mental health issues, whether that's neurodiversity, whether it's family situation. So whether it's not being masculine normative enough, for example, and not fitting a mold. So the deeper we go in each one of these identities, the more we see that there's so much there's actually so much that we share.
Right.
So that's a lot on the D.
Yes. But
What would you add?
well, I don't have anything to add to that, but I do wanted to push it a little further. You start talking about diversity, and then you talk about the inclusivity portion and inclusion and belonging. Those words sound very similar, but I think there's some differences. So if you would, can you tell us what's the difference between inclusion? Like, we've got everybody at the table, everybody's here, but what's the difference between inclusion and belonging? Because I think that those nuances are really important.
Yeah. Well, for inclusion to me is an interesting leadership challenge. It's what I would say, it's the how. Inclusion is the how we get the most out of the who. So the how is what my book is about, which is the technique of creating enough psychological safety, for example, so that all of the diversity can be brought to bear. And that diversity isn't just for fun, it's not just for quotas, it's for the brilliance of the different life experiences and lived experiences and the lens with which we look at. You and I would solve a problem very differently, but you and I would be a 1 + 1 = 3. Precisely because we would look at something differently. But if you don't have inclusivity, you're not managing you're not creating the environment for all of that brilliance and that catalytic creative abrasion to really happen. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in every group dynamic of, should I say that? Should I challenge that? Should I give another idea? What's going to happen? And will somebody steal my idea? Will somebody talk over me? There's those kinds of fears going on. So inclusion is, to me, the management technique of enabling the power of diversity to truly be brought to bear. And then belonging is sort of a result, I think, of doing these things really well. I feel a sense of belonging when my diversities are seen, heard, valued, welcomed, embraced. And then I feel belonging when I see people that look like me here. I believe I can be anything and here and reach my potential. And I belong here. It's a deep kind of, wow, I feel so taken care of on a heart level and a head level, and I feel a sense of community, and I trust people around me with who I am and my truth, which, telling our truth has been dangerous for a lot of us traditionally. So to say that is high praise if we can accomplish that.
So if we could put it in a boardroom setting, it's like you have people in your building who come from all walks of life and all different places. You invite them into the boardroom, you give them a seat, and when they speak, you listen.
Simple. Yes. Yes.
What that is. That's what I heard you say.
Yes. And then equity, I know we're going to go there. The E wasn't added. I'd say the E has been part of the conversation maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago of the 2025 that I've been doing it. And equity is not, it's not equality. Equality is the goal. Right. Equity is, I think, the mechanism where we see the differences in the playing field, and we then address them with equity strategies.
And that does generate a lot of pushback.
Controversy.
And controversy.
Definitely.
The idea of equity.
Right.
And do you think that that's because people misunderstand equity and equality, or the idea that, well, everybody's equal, so we're giving everybody the same thing, the exact same thing.
What's the problem?
So what's the problem?
Yeah.
Right. They don't understand the equity. I've seen, I don't know if you've ever seen this photograph, and there are these children, and they're standing on different level boxes.
And they're trying to watch a baseball game.
Yes.
But there's a fence in the way.
Exactly. And one child is this tall, one child is this tall, and one child is this tall. Well, the child that's this tall only gets this much box, and the child that's this tall gets this much box. But the child that's this tall gets a bigger box,
right,
so that they can all see over the fence.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, and that's the difference between equity and inclusion. I mean, and equity,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Because the equal part of it is that they get to see over the fence.
That's right.
The equity is the size of the box they need so that they can see over the fence.
That's right, that's right. And I don't know how that got controversial. We want everyone to be able to see the game.
Right.
But it became somehow unfair to provide different size boxes for different bodies, which makes no sense. I can't rate a bike that's built for somebody that's a 6'5", person.
Right.
I wouldn't be effective. I wouldn't look like I knew what I was doing. So somehow, but that has become controversial as sort of giving a leg up to certain groups. But I think I've always believed we have to differentially invest in different communities of identity to provide, who have been traditionally outsiders in a system, to provide additional information and support to thrive in a system not built by and for us, for a lot of us. So the fact is, the system wasn't built to allow us to thrive. It just
But why do we need to do that? I mean, so what?
So what?
So what? I mean, they didn't get what I got.
Right.
I'm sorry, so what? Why is it important for us to invest in those who need more so that they can do more and contribute more? How does that help me?
Right. Well, Mará, we talked about business will and has fallen behind.
Right.
You know, when we look at the representation in the workforce, if nobody does anything about this, people default to what's comfortable.
That's right.
We default to the folks that look like us. We default to the people that have had similar backgrounds, that we know personally, who we know their families. Maybe they're the same gender, maybe the same sexual orientation, same race. So we will do that if there's not the point made, which is that the world is changing.
Right.
And it changes hard. It requires us to challenge our own understanding of how business used to be done and how it will be done in the future. And it also is a driver for innovation and creativity that we'll need to serve a diversifying world. So if your workforce doesn't look like the customer base that you serve, and you're not developing things that are compelling for those people, you're not speaking to them because nobody on your team has even thought about their lived experience, let alone lived that lived experience.
Correct.
You're going to miss the mark over and over again. So make no mistake, you might think companies right now are kind of downplaying what they're doing. I believe they are absolutely still doing this because they know they have to. If they do not, they will fall behind. They will not have the competitive advantage. They have to get the best and brightest talent that reflect the world. And they have to develop products, services, et cetera, as quickly as possible. And they don't even have to they have to go beyond anticipation. They've got to be ahead of the curve. Every organization has to be thinking about the future. So good leaders are very knowledgeable about the demographic changes, about the spending patterns that are changing. There is the greatest wealth transfer going on right now between generations that's going to women and people of color. So it's a massive shift that has huge implications for any sort of organizations and what they buy and who they trust and who they're loyal to. So there's a million arguments like this, and I think business knows, but they're acting like right now it's not that important.
So are they just calling what they're doing something else? Because I mean, a rose by some other name is still a rose.
Yes.
I mean, are they just using different language? Is the language changing? And it always catches up. But I just wondered if maybe the work is still happening, but under the guise of different language.
That is happening for sure. They're risk averse. That's companies' business, right? They are good at that, avoiding risk. And but also, you and I talked about how the dream we've always held out there, I think, is to have this work be embedded in every part of every institution, so that it doesn't need necessarily a team watching over the work, pushing the organization to be better, monitoring and measuring the organization. So, and you and I debated this a bit because, it's a tricky one. Would the change happen that needs to happen without those of us who are kind of bringing that information and that pressure to change? Would we all change as a population if we didn't have people kind of poking us, and prodding us and reminding us, the world is changing and we are not keeping step? And whether you're in church groups and you're noticing your congregation is disappearing and you're wondering, how can we be relevant still? I think every institution is struggling with keeping up. And these are very worthy questions, I think, to ask, and hard solutions.
Jennifer, I have to say, I do not think the change would happen if there weren't people pushing. And I do think that goes to one of those other controversial words that we haven't talked about yet, and you talk about it in your book, and that is privilege. That some of us have the privilege to do nothing, and it's okay. And those who have the privilege to do nothing and their life doesn't change at all, they are not impacted at all, they just go on with their lives, they do not have to fight. Those who have the privilege will continue to live comfortably and to be comfortable. And I think evidence is, and it's not about how you feel about others. That's not what I'm talking about. Because I think the evidence is in 2020, when George Floyd happened, And there were people who probably had just been going about their lives and they just didn't even know how bad things were. They weren't doing anything wrong or bad, but they were just going about their lives. And then when George Floyd happened, somehow it just opened those blinders and they were like, whoa. And they did jump in and start to fight for change. They were like, I didn't know that was happening, right? They were going about their lives. They had the privilege of doing that, where some of us, others of us, did not have that privilege. And that's why I say that I just don't think that, I don't think that would happen. I want to read something that you wrote.
Okay.
And this is something that from Jennifer's book, and it really struck me, it gave me chills. First, what she does is she quotes Frederick Douglass. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. That's Frederick Douglass. And Jennifer says, if you only remember one thing from this book, remember that to be an inclusive leader, you need to do something. Change is about action. And if you aren't taking action, your silence is a passive acceptance of the status quo, which further perpetuates the problem. Good intentions are not enough. Our legacies as leaders will be measured by our impact, and this impact is defined not by us, but by others. Those we aim to support and stand alongside. It is crucial that we move decisively and adjust constantly to ensure the impact we envision is becoming a reality. And that is what we were just talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is what we were just talking about, is that there has to be this something moving force. This action has to be constantly happening to keep it going.
Yeah.
So,
and by those of us that are relatively more comfortable, because we are more resourced. The struggle's different.
Yes.
We're more, and I always think of my own allyship. I hope to be considered an ally, but when I think about, whenever my energy flags, I think I am so much more resourced because of the way I'm able to walk through the world. What I don't have to cope with, it sort of accrues to me. It almost charges my battery. It maintains the charge in my battery so that I can go further. And I think it's so incumbent on us to exercise everything that we've been given. It's given for a reason. And for many years I was the LGBT, more of the activist. I was more on the oppressed side, and I was educating myself about that, and I was fighting the power, and then I think over time I've come to terms with all the other identities I carry that have made my LGBT identity so much more comfortable. The other ways and identities that allow me to walk through the world and feel safe, where others don't feel safe. And all of a sudden you begin to kind of parse out the pieces of who you are and think, wow, it's been so much relatively more easy for me. And there are rooms I can get into, there are things I can say, there's truths I can share, there's ways I can challenge, there's trust I'm automatically given. There is opportunity that comes to me because somebody may be comfortable with me and what I look like. So when I try to describe this from stage, I know I'm dealing with something really hot. It's a third rail. I mean, actually I've had clients say, please don't say the privilege word. Call it anything else, but don't say it. We've had so many fights. It's been so messy. Can you say advantage, or can you describe it in another way?
It's still a rose.
It's still a rose, and I can, and I enjoy the challenge. I love, because look, if it is a hot button for someone, I shift. I still get in. You close the door and I come in the window. I'm still going to get in there. I'm still going to have the conversation. And I'm still going to share my own path that I've walked of discovering that actually my allyship, not being LGBT, but my allyship may be what my biggest legacy is. And I don't think I would have ever said that earlier in my journey. But now I understand. I understand how to pull the levers, and I'm in there pulling everything I can to try to see what works and what's effective, because now I know, even in the LGBTQ community, it isn't the pain Olympics, but there are huge differences amongst us, even though we're collapsed into one.
Right.
It's like any community of identity where we sort of name ourselves something to make it easy on other people, but we're actually collapsing like really distinct identities with deep histories as communities.
About that.
Yeah, and I have a lot of, in that stacking up, I have a lot of privilege. So the more I think I can talk about it and make it safe to talk about, I'm hoping people adopt doing that as well.
There's something I do want to get to. It's like, you make this all sound so beautiful, really. Like this hope, this place that we're striving to get to. So, what do you think drives some individuals or groups to resist or push back against these ideas? They sound like such a beautiful place to be. Why would somebody push back against that?
Yeah.
What is it? What's that thing?
I mean, I think humans don't love to change, and our sense of ourself feels somehow like if I take this in, it means that that I've been less of a person, that I haven't been, an exemplary human, that I might regret choices that I've made, things that I haven't done, things that I've said. My family, how I was raised, and I might lionize those people. I mean, I think we hold ourselves together, the sense of ourselves, right? But it's very fragile. And I think a lot of people don't want to allow the chink in the armor to result in Humpty Dumpty just like falling apart into pieces of everything I believed and everything I know and everybody in my life and everything people say around me. And to break with the tradition is scary, I think. You talk about belonging, to ask people to step out of their group and say, I don't agree with that. It's perceived as risky, and it is risky, actually, to
and I
step
guess it could be
out.
isolating and...
Well, you're kind of inviting exile from the people that have loved you, exile from family. When I do work with men and masculinity and male leaders, they say, if I challenge that, I'm not in the man club anymore. Like, I mean, I don't know how I can actually raise this bad behavior, but I'm going to be exiled. And it's a strong word, but it's weird. I faced exile from coming out. I faced that when I was early in my life.
Right.
And I'm actually so grateful for I had to go through the head of the pin of risking everything, love of family. As I was told, you will never work again, you will not love, you will not have children, you won't be able to do, that was the message I got from my family when I came out. And it was like a death sentence, for a life of happiness. But I risked it all to live my truth. So some of us that have had to cope with all of that, we got that medicine.
So it's
and
fear.
It's in us.
You're talking about fear.
It is fear.
You're talking about
total fear.
Fear. And I think fear is all around, right? So it's not the person, you talk about someone coming out. It's that fear of coming out.
Yeah.
So they're afraid. The person they're afraid of, or the people they're afraid of you.
And for you.
Well, they're afraid. If they're your family,
you.
they're afraid for you. If they're not, they're just afraid because they don't understand you. Then the people who want to embrace you might be afraid to embrace you because they might say the wrong thing.
That's
so
true.
they're afraid. So we're all walking around afraid of one another.
So true.
How do we get past that?
Yeah.
How do we get past that? Let me ask you something. I just want to bring this closer to Kansas City. As was stated earlier, Kansas City is preparing to host a major international soccer event in 2026. And we know that it will bring people from all over the world, including from nations predominantly populated by people of color. right, who in this country historically have been marginalized, and we know that to be true. So I'm curious to know, with the world coming to the city for this big game, what does real inclusion look like on the ground in Kansas City? What should we, Kansas City, be doing to prepare, not economically, but socially, and to receive people so that they feel welcome in our city? What do we do? How do we do that?
Yeah, it's a huge question.
It is a huge question, Jennifer, and I'm sorry, but...
It's all right. Yeah, well, I might liken it to, in June in Pride Month, coming into a town and not seeing a single rainbow flag anywhere. That, to me, sends a message of turn around and head out, because, they didn't do their homework. They clearly don't want our money, but it's bigger than that. It's a welcoming and a belonging question. Am I going to be safe here? Are people going to be prepared for me?
Right.
So doing your homework is the first piece, to learn about the cultures that are coming here, and to see what are the ways that we can signal to as many cultures as possible that this is a place they will be safe and they will be celebrated, and that we've taken the time and the effort to prepare. So how would we show that? Both whether we're business owners, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's cuisine, what are the ways that we might make that visible? And I don't mean to just say it's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk as well. So, if you can put yourselves in their position and come to this town, who are they going to see also?
Right.
I would want to know the communities here that reflect the countries that are coming.
Right. So they should be in the mix and bring them in, talk to them.
I would pull that coalition together, and I would say, go to the source. Don't make assumptions also. When you do your homework, the important thing is you study other cultures, but then you go to people in that culture. You don't just read a book about it or whatever. You actually get the human there. It's sort of a pride designed by a lot of non-queer people, with no queer people at the table, is a riskier gambit. So it's nothing about us without us, right, is a saying that I always love. So who's at the table designing the approach? Are we asking communities, what is your definition of welcoming? What would you want to see? What would make you feel safe? What kind of messaging do you want to see and hear from the business community, from stores? Where is everyone going to be gathering? I would train staff in every service business in certain cultural norms and things. We, in the LGBT community, there's a safe spaces training that we created with Stonewall in New York City, the bar, and it's safe spaces for stores. And there's actually a process that they go through of ensuring that they've done a sort of baseline as a store to say you are safe here. We aren't giving to anti-LGBTQ causes. We have bathrooms and restrooms that are appropriate and gender inclusive for you. We have trained our staff on how to speak and how to address you. So it's sort of this holistic way to prepare businesses to truly to be certified, like in our case. But that version of that would be incredible. And if we could get ahead of it, because now you have a year, so that's a lot of time to invest in cultural competency and begin to really think about this at scale. But there's just, you can use all that time well, or you can kind of put it off and procrastinate and not be organized about it, and then kind of be catching up, and then sticking flags in the window randomly and being really careless about it. And I would give it much more thought than that and engage the communities.
So what about each individual citizen?
Yeah.
Like, do we have some responsibility to prepare ourselves individually, to be a part of this movement towards creating a more welcoming Kansas City? And what does that look like for the individual, for just somebody like me or any one of our members of our audience. Not the city, not the business owner, just the average Kansas Cityan.
I mean, I always go to the humans. Think about those humans that are coming. How can you interact with them? What could you offer to share your home with them? What can you offer to organize, to gather, around, say it's something you're a part of, and you want to have guests, you want to invite to dinners, to it would require some creativity, I think, to engage. And I don't know much about how available the athletes are.
What about like if you have kids in a school that's pretty diverse in Kansas City and just having, we have a large immigrant population in Kansas City. What about just having, your daughter's friend who plays soccer with them who's from, I don't know, Peru or someplace else, inviting them over for dinner and talking to them and getting to know your neighbors next door. You talk about storytelling also in your book, and I always say that I think storytelling is the great unifier. I think that's all we have to do is tell stories, because if you tell me your story and I listen and I tell you my story and you listen, we're bound to find something that we have in common. And once we have that sense of commonality, then we can relate, we have a bond. We did that this afternoon, you and I. We sat and we talked and we shared. So I wonder if just more storytelling and sharing of who we each and every one of us are, do you think that would help us to prepare ourselves to receive someone who doesn't maybe look like us or come from the same cultural background as us?
It could involve like book reading together. It could involve books from different cultures, authors that are celebrated. It could involve outreach to the teams ahead of time, to say, our school has read, the several authors, and we're having this whole conversation about the history of your country, and we would love if anybody would be willing to come in and speak to us about it, and we could ask questions. So it's crafting, I think, a lot of those that takes this massive event and makes it really intimate, because I do think storytelling and also intimacy, like really being adjacent to someone and sharing the same space. And I hate Zoom has felt so distant for so long.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm dying for in-person things. And they're all coming to here. They're going to be here with you. So I've got to believe that there's a lot more accessibility, but you've got to kind of get organized and set it up and lay the groundwork for it to have it happen.
Okay, so that leads into something I would like you to read from your book.
Where are my glasses?
By the way, this book is amazing. I read it in an afternoon because I couldn't stop reading it, and I was highlighting things. It's just over 100 pages, the crux of it, and there's all kinds of affirmations and how-tos and direction. So if you're puzzled and you're wondering, how do I get involved with this, you should read this book because it's just fabulous.
Thank you so much.
It really is.
Okay. My editor told me to cut off like literally half. This was supposed to be double the size. That's what they do.
I just devoured it. I was just like, wow, yes.
So this was shorter than I would have liked, but actually this was so smart to do because I wanted to make it accessible for people. So, okay, we can't expect to be good at this right out of the gate. We are going to have to apologize when our impact doesn't match our intent, and that is par for the course. I think a lot about failing forward, the agility and flexibility of getting feedback and adjusting and trying again. It's about getting a little better each time. This is about practice, taking it from an intellectual exercise to an embodied way of being. Inclusive leadership isn't a goal or a destination. It's the embracing of a journey where skills are built day by day, experience by experience. And a final word about courage and resilience in this stage. As we question things as they are, we are faced with the fact that in doing so, what we benefit from personally and professionally may shift. Our power may feel different and begin to come from a different source. Some experience this as destabilizing or even threatening. Our learning then is to see beyond this to the other side of what's possible when we work in solidarity with others. The possibilities are limitless.
Yes.
So good.
Yes. We talked earlier today along those lines. We were talking about fear and being brave, and you talked about courage here, and you said something like, even if you're afraid, do it anyway. Right. Push through to the other side.
Right.
And so just managing that fear and getting to the other side. And that, I think, all of us, as we talked earlier, we all are afraid of something.
Right.
That keeps us from getting to that place that we want to be, that place of diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging. And we just have to go for it.
You have to go for it.
We just have to go for it, absolutely.
Feel the fear and do it anyway, because that's if people trust you enough to take you aside and say, I really appreciate your intent, and here's how it's landing for me, then we can adjust, and then we can learn and to not be fragile. You and I talked about this.
Yes.
Fragility is another kind of big buzzword, but I think it just simply means that it's really hard to get feedback about our imperfections and our inabilities and our lack of knowing what to say and our lack of competency and skill. It's very hard to hear that. Again, it challenges our ego.
It does.
We don't want to admit we don't know, but there is a beautiful way to approach and be transparent about I don't know, and to be honest that I'm trying. This is me learning. This is me being imperfect. This is me being vulnerable.
I think if you start with that,
then you have permission to do a whole lot of things, if that's true.
And I always start with, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm hoping that you can help me.
I'm hoping you can help me.
I'm hoping you can help
and
me.
if not today, that's totally
Right.
okay.
Exactly.
I don't want to overwhelm you and ask for too much, but I think allowing someone to pick the circumstances in which they want to engage in a conversation with you about their experience is also it's generous to do that. It allows someone to have agency about how they support you and mentor you.
Right.
We all want, at the end of the day, agency. Agency is respect. So I don't want to jump all over you and tell me about the LGBTQ experience. I want to know, on my end, I want to know you've done your homework and you've given some thought to this, and that you're going to use my time and my energy and my thoughts and my stories.
Right.
That you're prepared to receive them. To me, that's a respectful exchange. It's not exploitative, and it's not tokenizing. I feel respected.
Right.
And I actually feel really happy to help. And so making the assumption that someone's going to be offended with the ask is not always true, but I do want to sort of say, to check in and to ask. It's like asking for consent. That's like such a huge conversation these days. It's kind of consent. It's related to that.
With that, are there any questions in the audience? I mean, you're sitting here listening to us, some of you may be bubbling with questions.
We've got about 10 minutes for questions, and we ask that you come to the microphone so that people at home can hear you. And also, I do have one from someone watching at home.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I have to respectfully remind you all who the President of the United States is and who the Governor of Missouri is. And it seems like what you have is a revolt. It's peasants with pitchforks, and they're on the offensive. Y'all are on the defensive, with all due respect. You're on the defensive now. And the governor's cutting funds out of the library because of DEI. And the president is making ferocious moves. And in your conversation, you were talking as though you were on the offensive. But with all due respect, it seems like you're fighting for what you already have, because the governor has threatened more cuts to this library. And you know, the national government's doing the same thing. They're kicking people out of the military who, you know, they're kicking them out, and that's a fact. And it seems that your conversation assumes that we're moving forward and going in the right direction. And from your perspective, from your urban, you know, cosmopolitan perspective, I understand your point of view, but I don't understand why you think you're in the offensive, why you're moving forward when this ferocious backlash is beyond, you know. Probably a little more conservative than you are, but I'm amazed that this is happening myself. And I didn't hear any conversation at all on that subject. So if you would comment on that a bit, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, remember the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice? Do we believe that anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of us, this is a very hard time to do this work. It's challenged me in a lot of the things I've believed about the direction that things were going, and has challenged a lot of us of the levers we've known to pull for change. They're no longer available to us. It is, yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's a choice to, like, I guess, understand this moment and predict if is it a moment in time in a long, long arc? And is the level of progress over many decades really so substantial, and this is a correction? And corrections sometimes are needed, by the way. We had, in my view, 30 years in this work. It's been literally, if I had to draw the shape of it, it would look like this. That's a long, long improvement cycle. Cycles have to happen, too. So maybe this cycle, if I'm looking at it as a productive pause and a defense where it was on the offensive in the best way, it's an adjustment and a moment to regroup, and to me, to ask myself, who did we leave behind? Honestly, that's what I sit with. Who did we, in our, you know, travel on this trajectory of the arc of the moral universe, did we get moralistic? Did we push too quickly? Were people not included in a way that resonated with them, that made sense to them, that didn't address certain painful realities for people? So I think, and like any movement, it was imperfect. And I think that we missed some things in the way we taught things, in the way perhaps folks felt. There was a judgmentalness and a brittleness to some of the moments that I think I witnessed in our zeal and in our passion and in our anger. You know, I think we came by it so honestly. But inclusion didn't always include everyone. And I want to hold all of us accountable. And, you know, and my work and field and all the writers and everything in 2020 kind of put gasoline on the fire, for sure. So this may be the end of a cycle, and there may be a beginning of a new cycle coming. But this may be a liminal space where we're in right now, where nothing is certain, where there's a lot of fear, where there's a lot of uncertainty about the methods that we used. But I think it's a very important opportunity right now to think about, when the pendulum swings again, what will we do differently to have a more expansive, inclusive conversation? And this is a question for politicians too. This is a question for all of us to say, are we truly being inclusive, and what did we maybe miss? And I'm not owning all of that responsibility, but I do think every part of advocates and activists, we all, I think, should think about this. I don't know what the answer is quite yet. I'm in the liminal space too. But I think to rush to restore everything exactly as it was and say it was right and you just didn't listen, I don't think that's respectfully, you know, the right place to go.
I really think, just quickly to help with that, I don't think that we should slow down and be on the defensive. I think that things we were doing, there was something that was happening right. I said this earlier today. if it wasn't working, they wouldn't fight so hard to stop it, right? So that is why I think we should just keep the pedal down, pressing, keep moving forward. And as we do that, the harder people push back against that, they start taking things they didn't even mean to take. And then we pick up some other people who come on our side.
True.
And I think that's happening now. So I do think that, I don't think that when you get pushback, you stop pushing. I don't, of course everything hasn't been done correctly, but we've come too far to go back now.
That's for sure.
So I just think that, this country, I think it's going in the right direction. There's always going to be somebody who pushes back against progress of any kind. And so you just keep doing what you're doing. You keep educating people about, diversity, equity, and inclusion as you are doing.
Yeah.
You keep visiting these companies and talking about it. And people they call the rose a carnation, whatever, but they still put it in the window. Whatever. So that's how I would answer that. I want to hear from you, ma'am.
So, I'm old, and I feel like I've been doing this work my whole life in a variety of spaces. But I feel like the younger generations, they have a really different way of approaching this, and it's caused a lot of conflict. I went back to school a few years ago, and I was taken aback in a number of conversations. So I just wonder if you could address a little bit. I think there's some sort of generational change that's happening, and it's challenging here, because I think people like me who have been doing this work for a long time are a little like, slow your roll, but at the same time, like, I don't want to discourage anybody, but at the same time, it's like, so anyway, I just think it's problematic. So I just wonder what advice you have for us.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The generational differences are real. Look, when I was young, I was really strident. I was very black and white. I was a fighter, and I've sort of, the edges of my rock have worn away, over the years, and I've come to understand that change is the long game, and change is a process.
Yes.
And there are many methods to it, and you can get the bees with the honey. There's different, the carrot and the stick metaphor. There's a lot of ways to show up as a change agent. But I think when you're maybe younger, and with the internet kind of stoking it, there can be an absolutism to it, and a real, that can almost be pretty unforgiving and rigid. And then with time, we begin to understand the nuances and all the gray areas of humans, and that life is long, and that people go through many cycles of change themselves, and that change takes time. And so I think, I don't know, that's the way I remember my younger self. And also, but the young folks are innovating language. They're naming things that we never named. I love the richness of our understanding of gender identity. Is like nothing that my generation ever knew to talk about. And as such, so many people were hurting and left out because we couldn't name who they really are. And I look back at that, and I never want to go back to that. So I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for the urgency, sometimes the stridency, the specificity of young people, the insistence on, principles. And sometimes I feel like I've gotten a little too loose in terms of whether it's compromise or meeting people where they're at has become such an art. It's so important to me to do that because I don't want to miss a single one. But I think we need the heat and the light, right? Like we were just talking earlier. There's some of us that work with heat and some of us that work with light. And it takes both of those things. And some people are going to respond to the two very differently, and better or worse. And I think some of the heat coming from younger generations can be complemented with some of the more sort of circumspect approaches to change that some of us bring that have seen so much over our lifetimes. That's a lot of wisdom. And I want more generational appreciation too, I think, between the generations. That's really important, that there's no judgment and there's only mentoring that's going on, mutual mentoring all the way around.
Well, we have one question online. You already answered the first half of it, so I'll just read the second. And then if you can give maybe abbreviated answers. I think we may have one other that's coming in in our audience here. But how do we, in light of what you were talking about with what's happening politically and the way the pendulum has swung, how do we convince the privileged that these are still important goals to work toward in this climate?
That is all you. That is all you.
How do we convince them?
That is all you.
Well, we can appeal to, how do I try to convince using many techniques. You know, I appeal to people's parenting. If they're parents of human kids, I mean, usually those folks are actually having really hard conversations in their families. They're being challenged by the young people in their life. They also want to be better leaders. They want to leave a legacy. I think everybody wants to feel proud of their leadership and who they are as a person. So, you know, if they're missing something, I'd like to think they can get past the scarcity that we were talking about earlier, like what's in it for me? What's going to be left for me? There's only enough for me. This pie is finite. If we can get people past that to think about the bigger picture, the longer game, the legacy piece, I think that, and then to say, this is not scary and it doesn't need to be hard. To utilize the advantages you have, the access you have, the voice you have, is really as simple as sometimes just sending an email. Sometimes it's advocating for someone. Sometimes it's pulling someone aside. Sometimes it's saying, you know, intervening. Sometimes it's literally, sometimes using your privilege shows like showing up next to someone of a different identity and just literally putting your body in the same space as someone. So if we could make it more on a day-to-day basis, more simple, right. And we've done this. There are many books about this. Right. Like, how can you use your privilege as somebody who wants to be an ally? There's just so many things you can do. I hope organizations incentivize this behavior more and measure it more. We're not in that space right now, but that's where I thought we were going, and I think we'll probably return to doing that down the road.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope
And we've got one last question here, and then we'll go to the book signing.
Thank you so much for cultivating your gifts and your resourcefulness, and also allowing for agency. I feel very privileged. I live in Midtown, KC, so I'm speaking on behalf, whether or not they like it, doesn't matter right now, of some people who may not have the honor or privilege of being here tonight and voice their concerns. What are some equity strategies, especially when I say Midtown, I'm talking Troost, Prospect Corridor. We're dealing with food deserts, violence, the such. We hear these words, World Cup, guests coming from all over the world, and my question doesn't reflect my enthusiasm for this event, by the way. Very excited about it. I've had the honor of traveling and such. To provide a proper context, our neighbors, and this is not to cause dissent, in some of the suburbs have already had hosting events, have already been provided, their mayors have told them, these are the free events that we are going to offer while our guests are in town. Very few of us in Midtown Kansas City have heard anything along those lines. I am hurting for my neighbors. So I would like to know some equity strategies. Oh, I have to also, just really quick preface, we have been asked to clean up bus stops. And I am thankful to say there is a beautiful soccer stadium afforded by Visa that is going in on the northeast side, where there are several refugees who are very familiar with soccer. However, for the average American citizen in Midtown, very little is being conveyed. So I'm here to ask for strategies to help people who don't feel seen or heard in the everyday, day-to-day politics of this city, how we can engage, or how I can advocate for them on behalf of the city to feel engaged for what is coming. Thank you.
Well, I've thought about this a little bit. I'm glad you mentioned the soccer field, because I think you could really start there. I always say start with the children. And so if you're having soccer, what about if you guys organized a soccer tournament there and invited your neighbors from all other parts of the city to come and have their children participate? That's equity. Bring them in and participate and treat them and welcome them. First, welcome your neighbors. And then once your neighbors get to know you, they'll come back to you and say, okay, we're doing something. Get a city that's welcoming first. We have to start with at home. I think that we start thinking about welcoming the world when we haven't even welcomed our neighbor. And so I think we start with our neighbors and work from there and grow from there. Because I know what you're talking about. That part of Kansas City has struggled for a very, very long time to be welcomed and accepted and constant and brought into the overall planning of the city, and it's been neglected and missed so much. So okay, they miss you. You open your doors. They didn't invite you to their house. Invite them to yours. That's kind of how I think of it. Beautiful. That's just one, but it's a place to start.
Ms. Brown, Ms. Williams, thank you very much for being here, and thank you all for coming tonight. Ms. Brown will be signing her books back there at the entrance to our cafe. Thank you all for coming.